In the game of poker, there are two separate but equally important types of players. The recreational players that are just looking to splash around and have a good time, and the wrecks that are trying to take every dollar that isn't nailed down. These are their stories.
In this next hand, we're in the cutoff. Action folds around to me, and I look down at the ace-9 of spades and open it to 15. Only the big blind calls, and we take a flop heads up. King 10-3 with 2 spades. I mean, the way we're running, the only question is, are we going to hit our draw on the turn, or is it going to be shy and wait till the river? The big blind checks pretty quickly, and I continue for 20. The big blind must feel this is an acceptable amount to lose for what will obviously be the second place hand, and slides in the call. Turn is the deuce of spades. Man, it feels good to run good. To make it even better, the big blind leads into me for 35. Could you really have a smaller flush? I look over at his stack and see he has about 150 behind and decide to flat call here. I think this was the only mistake I made in this hand. If I click him back, it'll be really easy to get the rest in on the river. As it sits, we're going to the river with an SPR of about 1, not the worst place to be. The river pairs the deuce. If he actually boated up on me, well, that's just the way it goes. But I'm on a sun run here. There's a better chance of it starting to rain powdered sugar donuts than me losing this hand today. He leads out again, this time for 50. I pretty quickly jam on him and he tanks. After I fade the snap call, I know I'm good. I've done all I can do now. He tanks for quite a bit. I'm rarely one for speech play and I don't change that up today. I figure my best chance for a call is to leave him to his own devices. A minute and 20 seconds later, he finally tosses his cards back to the dealer and I take it down without having to show down. An orbit later and I'm in the hijack and look down at the 7-6 of spades after 2 early position limps. Let's see how the poker gods are going to bless this one. I bump it up to 15 and find 4 non-believers in the congregation as the cutoff, button, under the gun 1, and middle position all call. Perfect, got him right where I want him. Flop is 9-4-3 with a couple of clubs, giving me a gut shot. Calculating my sun run odds, I figure I'm about 85% to hit an offsuit 5 by the river. Under the gun 1 and middle position both check, as do I. I don't think I can blast 4 players off this hand right here when this flop favors the field so much more than it hits me. Plus I'm gonna hit, it's just as simple as that. The cutoff bets out for 20, everyone else folds and I make an easy call. Turn is the perfect 5 of hearts. I check to lay the trap and he continues for 45. I'm not going to slow play this one. Let's start shoveling chips into the middle now. I pop him back to 110. Pretty sure he didn't have a big hand as he folds pretty quickly. I can't get the big payoff, but as long as I keep making hands, this will be smooth sailing this afternoon. I went a little card dead for about an hour before picking up ace-10 offsuit in middle position. This might be a touch light as an open in normal circumstances, but I've been dead for an hour, running well, and this table is not 3-betting hardly anything, so it's good enough. There's a straddle on and there's a limp in front of me. I want to discourage multi-way action, so I make it 30. The big blind calls, but the straddle and the limper fold, so I do get a heads up going to the flop. The big blind checks in the dark, and the flop comes down king 4 deuce with 2 diamonds. Pretty good for my range, so I c-bet 40. The big blind calls pretty quickly. This is usually a sign of a draw. If it was a middling pair or even top pair, I think he'd take a moment to consider his options before acting. The turn brings the 6 of diamonds, bringing in a flush and completing a straight with the 5-3. Big blind checks again. I think if I blast again, I should get him off everything except a king or a big diamond. I mean, don't these guys realize I'm running like God and I've just always got it here? I fire 90 into the pot and he pretty much beats me into it. The river 9 of spades is a total brick. He checks again. I don't think I can win by rolling over my ace high, so the only option left is to drop the hammer. I put him all in for his last 147. I survived the snap call, so I feel okay. Until he calls and rolls over ace-4 offsuit with the ace of diamonds for 4th pair. I didn't know it at the time, but this guy left his fold button at home. I guess I'm not bulletproof after all. The very next hand I'm in under the gun +1 and I pick up big slick. This will be the ultimate test of whether or not I'm still on a heater. Ace-king can turn on you in a hurry if you're not careful, so let's see what's in store. I open to 15 and get called by the hijack. The blinds fold and we're heads up. King, Jack 8 with a couple of clubs. At first glance it would appear the sun run isn't over yet. I'm busy taking down notes from the failed bluff from the hand before, so I inadvertently block my camera from getting some footage from this hand, so you'll just have to trust me when I say I bet 15 on the flop and got called. I want to keep in all his weak kings, jack-X, pocket pairs, gut shots, etc. Betting small on the turn lets him show up with a much wider range that I'm still going to be way ahead of most of the time. A 9 of hearts falls on the turn to bring in a couple of straight draws. I think a small bet here will get the strong stuff to raise because he doesn't want to lose value on his good hands. I just need to be disciplined enough to listen to him when he tells me he has top beat. He just calls, so I'm feeling pretty good about where I'm at. The river is a blank 5 of spades. Now it's time to get value. He hasn't shown any strength in this hand to indicate that I'm behind. And I just got caught bluffing the previous hand, so it's time to get that money. I fire 100 into the middle. He thinks for quite a bit, and I can tell he's on the fence between calling and folding. I'm praying for a call. He finally flicks in half the call. I show my hand, and he finds the other 50 on his stack to pay for a second place hand. And we're moving in the right direction once again. About 20 minutes later, we're playing 8-handed, and I pick up aces for the third time today and under the gun +1. Sunrun is still activated apparently. I open it up to 15 and the low jack actually 3-bets me to 45. This clears out the rest of the table. He's only got about 250 left on his stack, so I don't see a reason to 4-bet here. We'll be able to get it all in by the river without any issue if the board looks good. I call the 45 and we go to the flop. This guy strikes me as a bit of a thinking player, so I start thinking crafty thoughts when the flop comes down jack 8-6 rainbow. I donk for 55, trying to induce from an overpair. And I bet small enough that if he jams with 2 overs, he might think there's fold equity there. Usually when someone donks, they are capped at 1 pair or worse, and that's what I want him to think here as well. Instead, he min clicks me to 110. What sort of nonsense is this?
Huh?
It's obvious we both want the money to go in. If he's got a set of jacks, well, nice hand, sir. After pausing for a few moments, I rip it in and get snapped off. I ask him if he has jacks, and he says, I don't know, what do you got? I show him the bullets. The board runs out the 5 of hearts and the queen of spades. He doesn't move to roll over his hand for a few moments, finally declares my hand good and tosses his cards into the muck. I'm guessing kings, and if that's the case, the money could have gone in without getting all cute, but I really can't argue with the final result here. A few hands later, there's a button straddle for $6. He's the same guy that I got to pay me off when I had ace-king a few hands ago. Both of the blinds fold, and I look down at the ace-3 of clubs and the hijack. I'm not usually an advocate for limping, but with both blinds already folded and a hand that's speculative at best, I flick in the $6. Cutoff folds, the button checks his option, and we go to the flop heads up. King Jack 6 with 2 clubs, and I'm suddenly a lot more interested in this hand. I check to the button. There's a chance he might let me get there for free, and if he checks back, that gives me the green light to steal on the turn if I miss. He didn't get the memo and fires another $6, which I quickly call. The turn is the ace of spades. Not the draw I was chasing, but I think it'll do in a pinch. I check again, planning to check raise if he fires small again. Unless he has ace-jack, ace-6, or queen-10, he can't be in love with this card. He keeps up the pressure by betting $10 whole. I quickly check raise him to 35. He double checks his cards and matches my bet, and we're off to the river. 6 of diamonds pairs the board, which isn't the worst thing. Now I chop with all the better 1-pair aces that were beating me on the turn, but I really don't think there are many of those in his range. I fire out 60, targeting kings. It's doubtful I can get a jack to call for anything, and an ace is never folding here. He thinks for a good bit before tossing in a crying call. I roll over the ace and I'm good. He says good hand, but I don't think he means it. In the last notable hand of the session, I pick up pocket queens on the button. The low jack limps before I make it 15. The big blind a limper call, and we're taking a flop 3 ways. 9-5-4 with 2 clubs looks pretty good to me. I'm probably ahead right now, but this is a very wet and dynamic board against 2 players. I don't want to pussyfoot around, so when it checks to me, I bet 2/3 of the pot. The big blind calls, but the low jack has seen enough and returns his cards to the dealer. Heads up to a king of diamonds turn. Considering the check calling range of the big blind, this should be a blank even though it's an overcard to my pair. Unless he's in there with king X of clubs, I should still be in pretty good shape here. Big blind checks and I keep up the pressure with a bet of 70. Big blind wastes a little time before check raising all in, almost like this was a premeditated plan of some kind. I asked the dealer to count it down, but I'm already looking for an exit. There are 2 questions I need to ask myself at every decision point. What is his range, and what can I do about it? The second question is a lot easier to answer because it's reduced to only 2 options, call or fold. The dealer tells me the bet is 250, so about 2.3 to 1. The only part of his range I'm beating here is a club draw that doesn't have a king, and most of those will have an ace in it. So giving him 12 outs when I'm behind, and I really only have 1 or 2 outs if I'm behind, I don't like this spot at all. I'm crushed by king x of clubs, sets of 9s, 5s, 4s, 2 pair with 5-4, and most importantly, I'm really trying to get better at listening to people when they tell me they have a good hand. People just don't bluff much at these stakes. They're too driven by fear to try it, so when the money goes in, they just have it. I think it through and I just can't find a way that I'm good here very often, so I flash the ladies and toss them in the muck. As I racked up my chips later, I asked the guy what he had, and he said he flopped a set of 5s. I 100% believe him, so it's a good fold here for me.
Just finished up a really good session. I ended up winning 1239 on the day, so not too bad. Aces 3 times, they held up every single time. It was just one of those sessions where almost everything went my way. I had a bluff that didn't work out, but I was just running over the table. It was overall a really good day and a really good session. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.